Welcome to a brand new episode of Level Up with Deb, where we illuminate the path to personal and professional growth. I'm your host, Deboshri Datta, founder and CEO of Criya, a Y Combinator and venture backed AI tech startup empowering industry experts to build their personal brands. Now, in my journey as a startup CEO, I've been privileged to work alongside some of the most innovative minds in the industry. And beyond the technology and the strategies, I've noticed that I really have started to believe in the power of stories and experiences. And that's why I'm here today to bring you conversations that matter. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about building a brand, it's about nurturing the person behind it. So, our guest today embodies the true spirit of all of this. Please welcome Moshe. Now, let me describe Moshe in a few words, if I may. Moshe is a product director, a university instructor, a product management coach, a startup advisor, a speaker, podcaster who I've been privileged to be on a podcast with, an author, and a mentor. Not only that, Moshe is a LinkedIn product management top voice, and he's the host of Beyond the Product podcast. And the list goes on, guys. So, without further ado, I'd love to go ahead and transfer the mic to Moshe and would love for you to introduce yourself in your words.
Thank you so much, Deb. I really appreciate that you have me on the show, and I never thought that I have so many titles, but it's like collected them, right? But yeah, I love to do a lot of different things, and part of it is just my curiosity. I love to learn new things, and I love to try different things. I love creating. So creating is something that really drives me. And if I don't create, I feel sometimes I'm really bored or I feel my energy levels go down. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, something I actually noticed right at the beginning when I was researching you and like your work, Moshe, is that you've always loved making stuff. Like you will not start with a template, even if it's given to you. You need it to be your own.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the sign of like a true creative, like it's so beautiful.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
so something I'd love to touch upon as we, embark on this, your unique journey here. You have a really strong personal brand, and personal branding is such a, it's an elusive term. What does that even really mean, right? And what I'm trying to do through our conversation is try to illuminate why do people start caring about it, and what was your journey, and like what was your unique story to start thinking about your brand. And I know that you've gone through some challenges due to like the macro job environment and so on, and how your brand has elevated you, how that's become a focus. So please share.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career as an engineer, and when I was an engineer or on the engineering end of things of developing software, I was laid off twice. And it was very, very hard for me. Each one of those layoffs, I probably took me around 6 to 7 months to find my new job. So there was a lot of pressure at home and pressure internally that maybe I'm not good enough and stuff like that. And then after the second one, I switched my career to product management, which I really loved. I took the time to really reflect what is it that I like doing. And then I found my first job and then moved to another job and then a third job. And I was like, oh, that's great. I will never be laid off again. And then I got laid off again. And that was also another blow. And then I found a job after a few months, and then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, I was like, am I going to lose my job a fourth time? I can't handle this anymore. This is not going to work for me again. So I realized, sitting at home, working from home, and then having, less commute time and stuff like that. I still have a good job. I still have it. I was safe in my job, but I was starting seeing this trend on LinkedIn of people talking about personal brand. And the way they were talking about it really resonated with me that maybe that's what I need to do in order to prevent the future of me getting laid off again. Because there is as much as we think there is security in being employed, there is these days, it's not like my father, he worked his entire life in one job and that was it. Like 45 years. And that was, I mean, different positions, many different positions, but the same
Yeah.
employer.
Yeah.
it doesn't exist anymore for us. So,
Totally.
or it's very rare if it does.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I needed to take control in my hands for my future. And one of those things was about how do I get people to know me? How do I get to build this personal brand? So that's where I'm coming from about building personal brand. So it really started with COVID, and the interesting story there is that I wasn't laid off from that job, but I moved to another job, and then I was laid off,
Sad.
and immediately I was able to find, new
Amazing.
clients, new. So it really worked. So the personal branding really showed me, yes, this is working.
It's fantastic. And that is such a motivating story, you know. Lately, I've been hearing a lot about personal branding just as a content creator and just putting yourself out there. I don't think that is the purpose of
Mm.
personal brand. Personal brand
Mhm.
should be a gateway to open opportunities that you
Mhm.
want, right? Whether that's a leadership position or whether that's a speaking engagement or,
Right.
you know, and things like that. So I really love that you've made it so intentional, and
Hmm.
it's not just about followers and you know, content production, because sadly that's kind of where, you know, we see a lot of conversations going, and I don't think that's the objective.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So I want to dissect each. It's gonna, I don't know if you're gonna have enough time, but I would love to dissect how you've gotten into each of these different areas, because not only are you phenomenal at, you're the director of product at your current company, but you have these other attributes that you've added to your portfolio, like your repertoire, if you may,
Hmm.
which make you so valuable as an asset,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
Could you share with me what was kind of the strategies? Like, how did you enter into these not one, but five different attributes to add to your skill set?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think it goes back to me loving to learn new things and trying different things. So I'm always curious about how, about gaining new information. If I could be a student for life, I would be. And maybe I am a student for life. So I'm always trying to find opportunities to learn. That's one thing. The other thing is also, um, unlike a good product manager, this is my really itching on my product manager side, that you have to say no and you have to prioritize and all of that stuff. I sometimes lack that discipline for myself, where I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I should try that. And this is interesting. Maybe I should try that. Like you mentioned, I'm an author. So I wrote a fiction book. And the reason and the
So
story
cool.
behind that was that my daughter, when she was in grade 8, introduced me to NaNoWriMo. NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month, which is
Okay.
every November, people around the world sit down and write a novel. And the novel is
Wow.
50,000 words. And yeah, and she said, okay, I'm going to do it with my friends because she loved writing.
Okay, beautiful.
And then I was like, you know what? I have an idea for a story. I will do it with you.
So
So
cool, Moshi. That is so cool.
So as a
Okay.
father, I wanted to do it with them, and we did like writing parties at home that we invited all of our friends. We had some snacks, and for hours we were sitting and writing and stuff like that.
Wow.
And at the end of the month, I had a story, but it was terribly written. But I was like, "Oh, this is an interesting story. Maybe I should do something about that." So I went to University of Toronto to learn creative writing in their
Wow.
continuous education, and then it took me 8 years to actually publish the book, but
Moshi, you're
it was always
incredible.
there, right? And I'm
Wow.
like, if it's the opportunity is there, I'm trying to see what will happen with that. And that's how it happened also with teaching at York University that I'm doing now, at Schulich Business School of Business, and mentoring and different things. It's hard for me to say no as much as I train myself to do it as a product manager.
Yeah. What a powerful story, Moshi. That is incredible. That is just so inspiring, and I'm so glad.
Thank you.
I'll be honest, like I couldn't extract that much from your LinkedIn. There is so much behind this human. I'm so glad we're having this conversation.
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful,
Mhm.
wonderful. So let me change gears a little bit more into. I am so inspired. I'm sure our listeners are going to be as inspired. So, could you help us a little bit with like someone who's getting started, right? Like, what would you recommend, like, for those who are, let's start with something a little bit more basic, right? Like you've accomplished a lot, but let's say starting
Hmm.
with the job seekers, right?
Hmm.
Like we're all today, like you said, the macro environment is so unstable,
Yeah, yeah,
and your resume is not going to cut it because almost everyone has a black and white resume which throws
absolutely,
the titles. So what is your
absolutely.
recommendation on how should they
Yeah.
start building their brand, at least for that first step to secure a stable job and a good job that they deserve?
So I think focusing on one area is really really good, and putting yourself out there, and mainly on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So this is not an advertisement for LinkedIn. I'm not getting paid by them or anything, but it's really the network out there for professionals to not just put their resume out and wait for jobs to come in, but to show who they are. And showing who you are is a little about what is it that you know that you can share it with the world, and what is it that you can add value to other people on that network. And that value can be in a way of additional information on their posts, or introducing to different people, so creating relationships. It's there, it's available, and I've heard numbers. I don't know if it changed in the past couple of years, but when I started this, people were saying that maybe 1% of people on LinkedIn are actually actively writing and posting and engaging.
Yeah.
And 1%, it's a very, very small number, even though it's
Yeah.
still a big number. Sometimes you think it could be intimidating because you see all of those people writing in there, and like their thoughts are so much better than my thoughts and stuff like that. But there is still a lot of space for new thoughts and new way of saying things and learning from your stories. So my advice will be to just do it, just go and do it, even if you don't feel comfortable doing it. That's another skill, to get out of your comfort zone, right? But pick up. I always have this list of notes that it's on my phone, on my computer. It's the same. It's just notes. And every time I have an idea, I just will write it down over there, because I will always like forget those ideas later. So this way, some people complain about, oh, I don't have anything to write about. You will be surprised how many things you can write about just from things that come along your day. You
Day
just
to day.
need to pay attention to that. And then when you do that, you create that habit, and this will grow your visibility, will grow your network, and will bring up also opportunities, not even in the way of jobs yet, but opportunities to participate in some discussions with other people or whatever. So look for those opportunities. That helps.
Beautiful. I love a couple of things that you mentioned that I want to extract out. One is, like you said, networking and like thinking of LinkedIn. It's not about, networking is not about, oh, like here's how cool I am, listen to me. Networking is about how what can I do for you?
Hmm.
If you approach it from that approach, your even content strategy and everything that you put out there, if you think about how am I adding value to someone who's listening to me or giving me the 3 seconds of their attention,
Right.
itself will tell you what type of content you should create. And if you don't have
Mm-hmm.
something of value to put, that's okay. That's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Wait till you feel like the next good idea is in your mind and you feel like it's valuable to the world.
Right.
And the other example, like you said, is not everything needs to be content. Sometimes you could be introducing another resource that you found valuable or
Mm-hmm.
another person that you found valuable.
Right.
Because I think the what I've come to discover is like the value of personal brand is like it's a door to opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
If you want a recruiter to notice you, do things that a recruiter would find valuable, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
like a hiring manager would find valuable and so on.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. There are also things like gotchas and things to be a bit um, be careful about in LinkedIn, because I felt, again, I'm not trying to be negative here, but sometimes I felt on LinkedIn that it's a beast that feeds itself. Meaning, if you are talking about LinkedIn, people will listen to you, and you will grow your network. Where if you don't talk about LinkedIn, it will be much harder.
Interesting.
But I'm not a LinkedIn guru, or I don't want to be a LinkedIn guru, or I don't
Okay.
want my job to be in teaching people how to talk about LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
So in the beginning, I was kind of fell into that trap of telling people, "Oh, that's what works in LinkedIn here, and that's what works in LinkedIn there." But then I realized that's not really what I want to do, right? So be also true to yourself about what is it that you try to do, and don't worry about the numbers. Like
Yes.
the numbers of followers, it's meaningless if there is no value there.
100%. And I want to touch upon this a little bit, actually. Two things that you
Just
said.
1 second. The lights here turn off automatically. I'm going to turn them on back.
Sure.
We can edit it out, right?
Yes.
I don't know why it does it, but
It's a motion
unfortunately,
sensor, I guess. Yeah.
yeah. Here we go.
Okay, amazing. I'm going to note down the timing. It's 5:19, 15:19 to 15:30. Okay. So very valuable stuff, right, that we're touching upon. Now, one thing I wanted to call out over here is the challenge with LinkedIn today is that it is truly operating like a social network where there's content production and there's the algorithm and so on. And part of what we are doing at Kriya is actually that, like, how do we take control of your brand and make it your own?
Mm,
So having your own website that you can maintain your content, your accomplishments, your work, right? That's your own. Nobody can take it away from you. There is
right.
no competition. So that's part of the direction I'm also trying to encourage people to think about is make sure that you're not a victim of an algorithm, right?
Yeah.
Claim your own platforms.
Yeah.
And the second thing that you mentioned is don't fall into the trap of followers. What are you going to do with 10,000 followers, let's say? If you're applying to a job, unless you're applying for a job as a content creator or a
Yeah.
marketer,
Yeah.
your
Exactly.
followers don't matter. Your hiring manager is likely as an employer, when I look at hiring folks, right? It matters to me if I can see that you maybe wrote one article which was of high value,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or you were invited to speak at one conference which was of high visibility. That shows me your authority versus 70,000 followers. What am I going to do with that? Right? So I
Yeah.
think there is something to that's really valuable insight that you shared, and people fall trapped to that these days.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it's a very good point what you said also about taking control over your content, because that was also one of the advice I got early on, not to keep everything on LinkedIn or in the social media, because it's the algorithm, but it's not just the algorithm, it's also their terms of use that you can all of a sudden lose all of your contact, right? Content. So people are really suggesting create your own like footprint on the internet somewhere,
totally.
and keep people coming, from LinkedIn and from other places
Yeah.
coming. Like if your thing is more TikTok or Instagram, that's fine.
Yeah.
It works, for some type of businesses and some type
Yeah.
of things you're trying to achieve. For me, those don't really work. So I focus on LinkedIn, but it's always good to try to bring them to your place.
Yeah.
But you have to be careful with LinkedIn about that, because they can penalize you for that. So that's where the algorithm is. It's good to know a bit about the algorithm sometimes.
Totally. I think it's a tool. You should use it to your advantage, right?
Right.
And I think, like I said, I think the whole idea around this is if you're serving a certain objective, if you're looking to apply to a job, or let's talk about public speaking, you're applying to a conference, the first thing the decision maker is going to do is they're going to Google you, right?
Yeah.
What is the first impression you want to make in the first 6 seconds? Your LinkedIn, if it's impressive, reasonably impressive, you're good. They're not going to look at all of your posts, to be quite honest, right? But like I said, like a website lets you highlight your biggest things. So I think that is valuable because that's the first thing they will see.
Yeah.
And maybe
Yeah.
they won't click on three other things, right? So
Yeah.
that's it's important to take control of that first 5 to 6 seconds that someone gives you
Right.
to to demand another 5 to 6 seconds, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. Cool. So I wanted to ask you a pivot a little bit into what are some challenges you think, I'm a woman of color, you've had an immigrant's journey. Like, have you had some challenges that you've had to overcome as you've been on this journey into a leadership role?
Yeah, and it's a very good question, actually. I had a few challenges throughout my career. Everyone has challenges. If they tell you they didn't, they're probably not saying the truth. But as a new immigrant to Canada, I was lucky enough because I came from the US, and I found a job even before I came here with a partner that we were working at the time. But then I hired people, and there was always this, you need to have Canadian experience. And
Mm.
I don't know how prevalent it is in the States or in the Silicon Valley, but here, for some reason, it was very prevalent. And I still hear it sometimes, even though most of the workforce is immigrants in Toronto, especially.
Interesting.
So I kind of took it as a mission to always hire people without Canadian experience because I knew I have this huge pool of amazing people that have experience from other places. It doesn't matter if they develop software in Romania or China or India or anywhere. It's fine. I can if they have a good experience doing that over there, they will be fine also over here.
Absolutely.
So that's a challenge that I actually didn't have, but I've seen it around. I was on the other end of things, and I try to help people this way. And I still sometimes see it. The other challenge that I had specifically was also in product management. There is a bit of a challenge to get to higher level from individual contributor to management levels. And it's a very weird challenge. I was never able to really crack it down. So I had to curve my own path. And because I was trying to get, so I actually had 20 years experience in software development. I was a CTO of a startup. I managed people, for at least 10 years. I created my own development and IT departments
Wow.
for of at least like 20 people. But then when I became a product manager, it was almost like I didn't have that experience at all, and they only wanted to hire me as a director or as a manager of people if I managed other product people. And it was very hard for me to break that glass ceiling. So I was trying in different ways. Maybe it will help someone that listening to this specifically in product management. But one way is that you try to build from within. So you grow from within an organization. So I joined as a first product manager, senior product manager on a startup. Unfortunately, the startup closed up, so that opportunity closed up for me. I tried to, come in as the existing company that is working, in IT, more in their IT department, so internal products, and they never really had a product manager. They had only business analyst, etc. And the trajectory over there would be great, but there was some very very slow advancement, and sometimes I'm not too patient about that. So to me, actually moving and finding my direction into that was more from the consultant end of things, and that's how I started actually being a consultant
Oh, very cool.
and being a coach in an organization that really appreciate all the background that I had, and they trusted me that yes, I can do the job, right? So that was really my main challenge over there. I think that building my personal brand and having my podcast already, the CEO that hired me was actually a guest on my podcast.
Wow.
And then I reached out to him when I lost my job. I reached out to him. No, I didn't lose a job. I just needed a change, and I reached out to him, and he said, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'll take you right away to work for me." So that was really helped me with my personal brand there. So
That's a direct, fantastic example because you already have the trust, right?
exactly,
You have the
exactly,
relationship, you have the trust.
yeah,
They, because I think that's challenge, right? Like there's a lot of qualified people out there,
hmm,
and the stronger your trust, credibility, relationship is, the more opportunities will open up, and that's why you talked about the network is so important. So
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah,
Okay, I have one more question for you, Moshi,
yes,
because you have a really strong personal brand
hmm,
and you also have sort of these, like this is a professional, like you are a product director and you have certain responsibilities in that role,
yeah.
but you also have a strong sort of personal brand where you're an author, you're an instructor, and so on. How do you balance the two? Like how, like, and that's a challenge. I
It's a
ask you this.
very good question. Yes.
Yeah.
It's not only that it's a very good question. I've seen people suggesting only focus on one thing and make sure your brand is in that one thing. and I was worried that I'm doing too many things. So when I released my book, that was the only thing I talked about on LinkedIn, for example. And I was like, am I losing my product management hat when I'm doing that? Because I knew I'm not going to. It's not a day job. It's really passion, a hobby, or a product of a passion. It's a very. It took me 8 years to to release it. So what I try to do, especially with product management, I'm always trying to think about how can I achieve a specific thing or talk about something from a product lens. So when I released the book, I was always trying to say, okay, the book is a product. What are the different lessons I can tell about writing the book, publishing the book, marketing the book that are very similar to product management? So I
Wow.
still kind of blend them together. I also did a little survey on LinkedIn with the network I had back then, and I asked them, like, do you care that I only talk about one thing, or that I also talk about different things? And the most of the people, I don't remember the numbers, they say, no, we want to see your entire thing. We don't want you just to talk about one thing.
Totally.
And I can tell you that when I see people that are repeating themselves all the time, they're saying the same thing in different words, I'm getting bored by them. And I kind of stop following them because they don't teach me anything new. So I really want them to tell me something new that I didn't hear before, rather than repeat, repeat, repeat. It's almost like a record that goes again and again, right?
Yeah. Totally. And that's beautiful. I'm really glad you shared this. And I think this is continuing to become a challenge for a lot of us because no one can be put in a box, right?
Hmm.
Even if you have a day job, you also have a strong personality. Even if you didn't do all this, you're a dad. You have so much to share, even through that journey. You have, you're a community builder. Like, so I think it is a delicate balance, and I'm glad that you shared your strategy there. But it is an important call out that you had to apply strategy. You
Hmm.
had to find that delicate
Yeah,
balance to
yeah,
not alienate one side from the other side, and so on.
yeah,
So it is an
absolutely.
interesting lesson there.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And that's why, as a product manager, it's actually not that hard, because when you are doing product management for many years, you actually start thinking about everything as a product. You are a product, your career is a product, your life is a product, your
Yeah.
family is a product. So,
Totally.
so it's not that hard. With the book specifically, one of the things about writing, especially fiction, I also used to paint in the past. Like I thought maybe I would be able to be like an artist, but it was very very hard to sell anything. So but you're attached to this much more than you're attached to your work. If you're working on a product, you have a big team, especially if you're not the owner of the company, you even have one remote attachment to it. And um, and and therefore at work you're much more professional, you can be much more level-headed about it. When it's your artwork, you want everyone to love it, and you cannot hate it, because it's like, how can you hate something that you put so
It's
many
your
hours?
baby. Yeah.
Yeah, it's your baby.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, when I started with the book, I even wrote about it. How can I treat my book as a product rather than an art? Because I need to detach myself from falling in love with my product. And this is one of those things, you don't fall in love with the solution, you fall in love with the
Got it with the
problem,
problem.
right? So then I was starting to think about, okay, so what is the problem I'm trying to solve here? And the problem is, people are trying to enjoy, to have a great story, to learn maybe something new from the book and stuff like that. Like their job to be done when they read the book.
Yeah.
And that's how I try to kind of market it towards, okay, who are my segment of people that will enjoy this type of book, and stuff like that.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Hmm.
Amazing. Amazing. I know we're right up on time, so I have one last question for you, Moshi, before I
Hmm.
let you go. If you were to give yourself the 10 years ago, you were to give yourself advice to the Moshi who was 10 years ago, what would that one piece of timeless advice be?
To believe in myself more, and do things that even if I'm not comfortable with them.
Beautiful. And I think that
Yeah.
applies to every one of us every single day.
Hmm.
Wonderful. Well,
Absolutely.
this brings us to the end of this enriching conversation on Level Up. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our distinguished guest, Moshe, for sharing your invaluable insights and experiences with us. Your journey and wisdom have not only enlightened us, but also inspired so many of us to think differently about our brand, about the impact we have in the world.
I really hope so.
So until next time, keep cultivating your brand, keep growing, and most importantly, keep inspiring. I'm Deb. This has been Level Up. Take care.
Thank you so much.